Schmidt.
Schmidt.
Okay.
This is J.J. Pianki of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign interviewing Jerry Schmidt on August 16th, 2017 at the Veterans Center on campus. Where and when were you born?
In Urbana, Illinois.
Okay. What year?
1941, May 30th, 1941.
Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My dad's name was Glenn Schmidt, and he was a printer at the University of Illinois for 42 years. My mom was a stay-at-home mom since there was 5 of us little kids, and her name was Anna Schmidt.
Okay.
They were both born and raised around here.
Who were your siblings and did they serve in the military?
Yes, my oldest brother, Robert, lives in town, and he served the same as me as a 6-month active and 5.5 years. Then I have a sister that's a nurse in Baltimore, and a sister that was a surgical tech in North Carolina, and a brother that's a world famous chef in Detroit.
What branch of the military did you serve in?
The Army.
Army. And you enlisted?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you choose that branch of the service?
I knew where the office was. My girlfriend at the time and I were talking about getting married, so instead of being drafted, I thought, well, I'd go ahead and enlist. And so I went and signed up at the One Army quartermaster group, as a matter of fact, on Randolph Street at the time. Mm-hmm. So I just enlisted that way.
Okay. What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
That's a story. When I signed up, I was having trouble with my wisdom teeth, and I asked the guy in the office there how long it would be before or if the Army would take care of my teeth, and he said, no, not for 6 months. I need to have that done before I left. And so I called my dentist and got it. He said it'd be about 3 months before I got my orders. So I called the dentist and made the appointment and had my teeth taken out. When I woke up, my fiance and my mother were standing there with this brown envelope from the Army. I had to leave in 5 days. And so then I got shipped down to Fort Leonard Wood for my basic training in February. Mm-hmm. And standing outside in the cold and formation, after I had my jaw open for so long, when it shut, it stayed shut. I had to mash up scrambled eggs to suck it between my teeth to try to get something to eat. Mm-hmm. So I ended up with double pneumonia and had to spend 15 days in the hospital. So. But then I got, transferred from one company to another one since I was 2 weeks behind in the training. Mm-hmm. So then finished up then.
Do you recall your instructors, and if so, what were they like?
Typical drill sergeants, and I don't remember their names, but that's what you expect from going to the So anyway, it was a good experience. I think every man and woman need to go into just to get that discipline, I still think they ought to have the draft.
Okay. Did you receive any specialized training, and if so, what?
No, not really. Just they may be a truck driver, and I hadn't drove anything more than a pickup truck or something like that. So learned how to drive a deuce and a halves and 3/4 ton and Jeeps and stuff like that. Is not really much training to it, but did a lot of that.
Okay. How did you adapt to military life, including physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
Yeah, I think I adapted real well. With 5 kids in our family, you had to fight for your everything. But it came out right. Barracks life was fine, everybody, as long as everybody cleaned up their little area and stuff like that, and everybody else didn't have to get on them. Mm-hmm. Wasn't too bad, yeah.
Any particular memories from your time in boot camp?
Well, standing in formation out in the street early in the morning, and it was all coal, fireplaces and hot water heaters, and that smoke was right at your nose, and I think that's what helped give me the pneumonia. And but it was still pretty good, you know. Laying in the hospital, there's a guy at the other end of the room that played harmonica, and so we just sit there and listen to him play harmonica all day. That was nice.
Nice. Where were you stationed?
Was for basic at Fort Leonard Wood, and then after that went to Fort Sheridan in Chicago, the actual base, not downtown. So.
Okay. So did you go abroad at all?
No.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
In basic, a kid I was kind of bumming around with, he lived in Missouri, so one weekend we jumped on a Greyhound bus and went out to his folks' house and spent the weekend and came back. And then I was stationed up in Fort Sheridan, a kid from Kansas, and I usually hung around, played pool and stuff like that. And then my sister, who was nurse training here, what was Mercy Hospital's presence now, but her training, she was up in Chicago, so one weekend, him and I and my sister and a couple of her nurses' friends all met on the beach and spent the day. So, but I used to be able to come home on the train about every weekend if I wanted to, you know, come back. Champaign's right at the 150-mile mark as a weekend pass, so I came home quite often, and Sunday afternoon head back up.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home? I mean, you just said you came home a lot,
Yeah,
but did you also call or?
Yeah, I'd have to call because of no cell phones back in those days.
Right.
Most of the time, I just didn't touch base all work during the week because I'd be back home, you know. So.
Right. And so then, how long were you at Fort Sheridan?
It was about 3 months.
3 months.
Because I was held over 2 weeks, so I was 2.5 months down there, and then get 2 weeks leave between that. So I'd say 3 months up there.
And so then, what happened after Fort Sheridan? You went into reserve, or
yeah, it was 5.5 years of active, what they called active reserve. Once a month, you had a weekend, and then 2 weeks out of the year you had to go to went to Camp McCoy.
And what year was this?
In 61 to 67.
So when you were at Camp Sheridan, when you were in Fort Leonard Wood, and when you were doing your weekend 2 weeks, you know, what did you do for recreation when you were off duty? Because presumably you weren't on duty all the time.
Well, my duty was pretty soft because I was in the at Fort Sheridan. I was at the quartermaster clothing store, and so people, when they wanted uniforms, boots, shoes, whatever, they'd come in, and about like department store here in town, you know, like Macy's or something, you know, and help them pick out clothes and shoes and stuff like that. And then every once in a while, a guard would bring in one prisoner that's getting ready to get dishonorable discharge. They give him one set of clothes, so he'd march around and we'd take a bag and stuff everything in his size. And so then, but that's about it. Yeah.
So your duty was with the quartermaster.
Yes.
Though you had trained as a truck driver, so you could move supplies.
They knew I drove a truck for a florist shop, so that's why but I wasn't really trained. So here's the keys, go get it.
Go get it. Okay. When you were in the service, did you read for pleasure, and if so, what?
No, not too much. In our off duty, we usually went down to the NCO club and shot pool and watched movies and stuff like that. So.
Okay. What particular book would you say influenced your life the most, and why?
A book?
Any book, any time of your life.
Yeah. Well, since I was an electrician, Nikola Tesla, who's the car's named after, inventing the AC current. That was really interesting. So, read a lot of his life.
Biography.
Yeah, and helped well, my dad was a printer, and I wanted to go in that trade, but they took me into apprenticeship, but they wouldn't put me to work, and my father-in-law was an electrician, so I asked him how I got in the trade, and he said, well, go sign up at this electric shop. So I did, and the rest is history. 40 years later, I retired.
Did you use libraries when you were in the service? Why or why not?
They weren't, I don't think, that close to where we were, because you had to walk every place, but most of the time you're busy during the day, and at night, just, you know, of course I used them around here. I was telling Jess that I worked here for 20 years and working over in the stacks and the libraries and stuff, just to see a book while I was working. At break time, I'd take it to one of those little cubicles and eat my lunch and read a book.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a reader. I like to read.
So you were only in for about 6 months total, but how did you readjust to civilian life after having done the boot camp and then your 3 months at Fort Camp Sheridan, and then you spent so many years doing the reserve thing? You know, how was that interacting with being a civilian again?
Well, my wife at the time, after 2 weeks of being at summer camp, couldn't believe the foul language I used. I won't say what the words are. How in 2 weeks you can come up with using that language, but getting back into civilian life and talking decent to people. So that was hard, but being able to come home about every weekend, you know, you really didn't get away from this civilian life, you know. Not like somebody is shipped overseas for 2 years or 4 years, whatever. So.
Have you remained in contact with or reunited with fellow veterans, and if so, who?
No, I haven't. The one kid from Fort Sheridan, he said he'd stop by on his way home. When he got discharged, I got out before he did, but like everybody, he wanted to get home. I think he just went straight home, and I tried looking him up later, but trying to find him, you know, is hard to do, so I haven't. The people who are in my reserves, I run across them every once in a while, you know, out and around on the streets, and so.
So are most of the people that were in your reserve then part of, so was your unit composed of people from the Champaign-Urbana area?
Yes, yeah, and we had one, I guess the commander was up in Chicago, because they'd go from Chicago to Camp McCoy, and we'd go, our convoy from here went up there, so up to McCoy, so that's about the only time we were ever together with that group, was of course all around Chicago. And everybody else here was surrounding towns and everything. They all got assigned to our unit, you know.
So really your unit was made up of your neighbors and people in the community?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a member of any veterans organizations, and if so, which?
I was, but we moved away for a couple years after I retired, and I kind of dropped that. I was at AMVETS, and then the Legion over here in Urbana. I was a member of that for a few years, but I didn't join back up again when I got back.
What have you done since separating from the military? So you became an electrician.
Yeah, well, yeah, I became an electrician after that, yeah. Went in the military in '61, and I started my apprenticeship in '63, so, and got them both over into '67. That was a good Christmas present. Got discharged from the Army, and then in May I got out of the apprenticeship, so felt like a free man. For one thing, it was something else, studying or being in the Army, so.
And so then you said you retired from the university.
Yes.
So how long did you work for the university?
I worked for the university 20 years. Worked for electrical contractors around town for the first 20, and then work started getting slow, so I went over and took the exam and got on to university.
Nice. As an electrician?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Nice. As a veteran, have you used your local library? Why or why not?
Well, I haven't used it since I retired, but I used it quite a bit when I was working. My wife and my present wife and I have been married 26 years today.
Congratulations.
But we restored old homes for the first 20 years of our marriage, and we did 8 of them, so whenever I had a problem, I could use the library, look it up, or walk down the hall and talk to the other trades that over at, they call Facility and Services now, but it was O&M back at when I worked there, so got plenty of answers.
What has the experience generally been like when you use the library?
Very good, yeah, and that being able to come and go from the stacks anytime I wanted to and stuff like that, and most of the people over there knew you because you usually have your tools on your shoulder and stuff, and you go up and ask a question and stuff like that. They're always willing to help, show you, and even in the rare book room, getting in there and letting you in. So it was very good experience with all the staff.
Good. As a veteran, are there programs or types of books available at the library that you enjoy more than others?
Well, since I retired, I haven't been to the library, but I have subscribed to quite a few books, the Smithsonian and the National Geographic and Popular Science, Popular Mechanics, and other things. So yeah, I read all the time. My wife says I just fill my brain with useless information till she wants an answer of something. How do you know that? You probably read it. Yes.
As a veteran, is there something that you wish you could change about the library that would enhance your enjoyment of it?
Well, as far as my experience, no. I think they do everybody there tries to bend over backwards to help everybody that comes in. So I don't think there'd be anything to change. I think.
Okay.
Well staffed.
How did your military experiences affect your life?
Well, a little more orderly maybe than what it was before I went in, I probably needed that discipline just as bad as any young kid now, But it was a good experience, and I think it did, like I was telling Jess, that my final few years at the university, I was a supervisor over 96 electricians. So, being able to handle your budget and handle the people helped out being in the service, I think.
What were you doing before the service?
I first started out going to high school, and after high school for a year or so, worked Abbott's Florist, and then went to a fertilizer company as a bookkeeper and helped loading trucks and stuff like that. And then after that, I went to Eisner Foods in their warehouse, in the publication part of it, sending out literature to all the stores, sales coming up and getting so they can order and stuff like that. And then I went from there into the apprenticeship.
And so why did you sign up initially? I mean, was it because of stuff going on in Vietnam?
Yeah, that was in the back of my mind, and wanted to get married, and so I just went ahead and signed up, and then come to find out the company commander lived on our paper route. My brother and I had one when we were smaller, so.
Small world.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Excuse me.
What are some life lessons you learned from your military service?
Oh, like I said, maybe the discipline, organization. Everything has a place, and everything needs to be in that place so you can find it. Just like you're in your foot locker and stuff like that. So I think that, just being organized better.
Okay. How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
Well, there's some things that the whole world can't control, like a Hitler or Saddam Hussein or even the people now. So there's just have to have some kind of force to take them down. You can't let them ruin the world for everybody. So I think I have no qualms about declaring war on somebody, like even North Korea, if that comes to that. But don't want to see it now, and that there's the nuclear age, because that affects so many people that aren't in that country, and so that'd be the only. We say, of course, they have nuclear powerhouses and stuff like that, but get rid of nuclear altogether. So that's about
Okay. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear this interview?
That's a good question. Just be loyal to your country and to your job, to your family, and treat the world nice and leave it nice. I think that's about it.
All right. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to the interview, and if so, what?
There's one thing, when I worked up in the quartermaster group at Fort Sheridan, they had a big semi that we'd load up with clothes and shoes and stuff like that, and then went to all the Nike sites around Gary and Chicago and Milwaukee and set up shop, set up the store, and after they got off work at 5 o'clock or so, we'd have to be open. They'd come in, buy clothes and stuff that they couldn't get up where they were at. So that was a lot of fun. So that different. Like a sergeant that was over tried to get me to re-up. He said, I can make sure you stay here and work. I said, yeah, I've heard that before. So I think I'll just go home. So that was a neat experience too. So.
So was this part of like an aid mission, kind of to the poor cities of Chicago or poor areas of Chicago?
No, it was actually to the base that was the Nike site was in. They'd have the bunker with the Nike down on the ground, and of course they had their duties. They had to stay on post, their little post. So we just stopped and put up stairs to the semi, and they'd come up and buy their clothes and stuff like that, and after they got done, then we went to their mess hall and ate, and then the next day we'd open up, and after 8 or 9 o'clock we'd close up and go to the next Nike site and do the same thing that night and morning. So
you're talking about nuclear ballistic missile silos?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were a traveling PX, basically?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not too many people did that, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So was the traveling PX just in like the Illinois, Indiana kind of area, or did you go further?
Yeah, in Wisconsin. Yeah, just the three, yeah.
Just those 3 areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And what was that like? I mean, going to the missile silos, seeing the missileers.
Well, of course they didn't let you see those, but
You knew what you were seeing.
Yeah,
you knew what you were at.
Yeah. But having the security to get in the gate too, I guess, was different. And the quartermaster group I signed up with, when I got out in '67, they let me out about 3 months early because it was changing over to a chemical outfit, because that's when the riots on campus were starting up, and so they were retraining them to be chemical warfare. And so they, instead of taking me over for that 3 months on the books, then they just released me 3 months early and
instead of retraining.
Gave me a New Year's Eve present.
So you were able to muster out actually before the Chicago riots in '68.
Yeah.
Got lucky.
Yeah. Of course, I don't think our unit went up there. That was mostly the National Guard took care of all that.
Right.
But,
so would you say that your service was pretty uneventful?
right. Yeah. It was fun. Met a lot of good people. I mean, when we were out here in Urbana, we're out there on East Main Street where we met. We first was in the small equipment repair section, and we got a semi-load of clothing, sewing machines, and shoe and boot repair. No manuals on how to work them or anything, and so all the guys in the section had to learn how to use a sewing machine and how to repair boots and stuff. And every time we went to Camp McCoy, the company commander up there was waiting for us to come because he'd come down and get all his uniforms tailored. So he couldn't wait till we got there. And then in the motor pool, I got they made a sergeant over the motor pool, and one of the guys was a mechanic. One of my mechanics was a machinist over here at the university, and so when we had parts that were broken and didn't have the echelon to order them, he'd make them at work and bring them out.
Bring them over.
So we could keep our equipment running. Yeah, so it had a lot of fun. Me and another sergeant got a bet last year, I think it was, I went up there. We had like 20-some vehicles, and he bet me a case of beer that we wouldn't all make it up there in one piece, and made it up there in one piece, and not a unit broke down. I collected my case of beer.
Nice.
Yeah, too bad my father-in-law, he died about 3 years ago. He was 92. He was in World War II, but he really didn't want to talk about it because he was in the motor pool in New Guinea, and he thought it was a plush job, and where him and all six of the 7 brothers were in the World War II at the same time, and they all made it home alive, but all the rest of his brothers were on the front line in Africa and places like that, so he thought he had a plush job, so he really didn't talk about it. So. But he told my wife and his sisters that he got this Japanese Luger pistol. Somebody picked up and off of a dead soldier or something, and he got the okay to bring it back. But he told them that he traded cigarettes for it. But he told the son-in-laws that since he was a plumber, he traded moonshine. But we still have it in the family, so it's going to be. The Japanese officers had to buy their own pistol. They didn't issue them to it, and this was number 2020. So so he had the company commander write a letter saying it was authorizing my father-in-law to bring it back, and had the serial number down, so we still got the letter for that too. So
Wow.
yeah, but they've all passed away. So, but he probably wouldn't even let you interview him because he didn't do anything.
Well, we're interested in all stories of service.
Yeah.
Whether you were just driving a truck,
Yeah.
or you were doing combat, or you were in a communications shack. Those are all important stories because that's what our military looks like.
Yeah.
It's not all fighting in the streets. It's supplying people with uniforms and making sure that people have gas in their Jeeps and all that kind of stuff.
Seems like I spent more time driving the truck than some of the training, but we got ready to turn in our weapons from basic. You had to, of course, clean them and wait for the sergeant to inspect them and all that. So I had to get up, I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning to go drive trucks that day. And so when I finally got off and got back to the barracks and cleaned my weapon and went and got in line, I fell asleep on the floor. And about 9 or so, I finally woke up, and the sergeant was in there, so I took my weapon, and he said, "So you finally woke up?" I said, "I stood on either side of your head and jumped up and down, and you didn't even phase you." Kept sleeping. So he said, "Your weapon's fine."
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I guess it's how you go in.
Yeah.
What your mindset is and what you expect, and if you're going to fight it or you're going to roll with the punches, So
So you mentioned earlier about wanting to get married. So was serving in the military was serving in the military somehow related to getting married? Was it like you wanted extra money for the marriage, or she was like, "You're going to the army before we get married," or
No, we talked about it, and of course with Vietnam War on the horizon, I just thought I'd go ahead and enlist in the section I wanted to be in.
rather than being drafted.
Yeah, instead of being drafted and getting sent over there. But so after I got done with my 6 months, got that back in September, and we got married in November, and so that's what kind of why I just did that, just to fulfill my obligation to the country, plus still, get married and raise a family.
Okay.
So, and that lasted 28 years. Today's my 26th wedding anniversary to wife number 2.
Yeah. So, anything else to add to the interview?
Don't think so. I appreciate your time. I told Jess, my brother, we both went in about the same time, only he went different place. He didn't go to Leatherwood or anything. I'll send you guys his email address if he wants to.
Yeah.
And
we'd love to talk to him.
yeah,